Hi there, and welcome to this fundamental mental health awareness presentation. My name is J. Michael Hogarth. The idea of this presentation was to try and make mental health information accessible to everyone, try and put it in layperson's terms so that everyone can understand it. But before we start, I want to introduce you to a trigger warning. Because when we talk about mental health and we talk about various different topics within it, you may find yourself becoming a bit emotional, which is perfectly fine. So I'm going to cover the fundamental concepts, which I mentioned a second ago, including what mental health is, how it impacts all of us, and its connection to our emotions. And while we won't be discussing anybody's specific cases or anything like that, you may find yourself having some strong feelings towards some of the information that's shared here. And if at any point you feel uncomfortable or triggered, please take care of yourselves and feel free to step away, take a break, turn the video on pause, that kind of thing. Okay, make sure that you are looked after and that you're safe. Okay, my only aim is to educate and generate awareness. So without further ado, let's get cracking. So first off, we need to overcome stigma. Now, when we talk about mental health, there is an awful lot of stigma surrounding the subject. So where does this come from? Let's look at a couple of figures here. Nearly 9 out of 10 people with mental health problems say that stigma and discrimination have had a negative effect on their lives. And here's some examples of everyday language that you may hear. You've probably heard all these anyway. Common words like nuts, loony, crazy, mental, weirdo, psycho, freak, div, dummy, retard, oddball, nutter. Now, these are in everyday language that you will hear wherever you are, in the supermarket or out with your friends or your family. And these things really do affect you, especially if you are struggling. Just a little word might catch in your brain. Some of the common phrases, a few sandwiches short of a picnic. They belong in a home. They've got a screw loose, batshit crazy, and, messed up in the head, all of that kind of stuff. So these are the kind of things that are in everyday life that we hear all the time that can have a negative impact on us, especially if we're struggling silently. The next one, there's stigma in newspapers. Let's have a look at some of the headlines on this. The mental health crisis deepens. Killer pilot suffered from depression. A BBC news anchor breaks down on air after receiving a touching message after, I think it was a cancer diagnosis, and his son phoned in and he broke down in tears. It wasn't so much that story, because that's quite touching in itself, but it was the fact that it was front page news, like someone breaking down was on front page news. So you can see why there's stigma. Social media, you must have heard about this, can damage teenage health. All of these headlines create this stigma from newspapers. And there's also stigma from movies. And I'll leave this one to play for you.
Come to the next pitch. Chris swings. It's a lot of fly ball and he flips it out.
It's going. We know safe paths for homices. Safe paths in the dark. Shut up.
I didn't say anything.
I wasn't talking to you.
I want to see the real you.
So there's just some examples of mental health in movies that you may have seen, which kind of generate a bit of stigma. Okay. Mental health current statistics. Now, some of these are shocking. In fact, all of them are. 61% of adults with mental health conditions, they don't access treatment. They suffer in silence. They struggle all by themselves. 98% of the public agree that people struggling with their mental health experience stigma and discrimination. Women and girls, they attempt suicide 1.5 to 2 times more often than men and boys. 3/4 of registered suicide deaths in the UK in 2020, so this is a couple of years back, were from men. So what that means is that women attempt suicide a lot more, but men are they're more deadly in their actions. So the figures are rising. Approximately 15% of adults aged 60 and over suffer from mental health disorders. This is loneliness and depression. Over a quarter, 26% of young women aged between 16 and 24 years old report having a common mental health problem in any given week. This could be anxiety, depression, all sorts. 1.4 million people over 65 in the UK today are lonely. Now, that's an awful lot of people being lonely, isn't it? And I live in Torbay in Devon in England, and the elderly population make up over 50% of the area. So if you factor in all of that, there's a growing mental health problem within Torbay. Globally, 1 in 7 10 to 19-year-olds experience a mental health disorder. So what are the projections? Let's have a look at this. This is where the data says that we're heading. So I'll just move this over here. The majority of, this is American, the majority of Americans struggle with mental health. And as you can see, anxiety here is 41% of Americans. Stress, 39% of Americans. Now, America's a huge population. It's massive. 300 million people. And 40% of them are stressed. Depressive phase, 30%. Feelings of loneliness, isolation, mood swings, phases of sadness, panic attacks, 20%. Struggles with self-esteem. And as we move down the list, you get to more kind of general phobias, scared of spiders, outdoors, things like that. Okay, moving on to the next slide here. What's the general public missing? What are you missing? What is the media missing? What is everybody just kind of overlooking? And I think it's important to look at this, because what we seem to be missing is a clear understanding of what mental health actually is. I speak to people in my counseling office and stuff, and they'll say, oh yeah, but I've got mental health. And it seems like they miss what that means. Good health, bad health. So how it relates to us all, what happens within us, our actual experience within our bodies, why we struggle, how to relieve symptoms, and how to live with more awareness of what it is we're actually going through. So that's what we're going to be talking about through this presentation. So first, we need to understand the basics.